Hi there and welcome to the channel and to this my February wrap in which I reflect on both the quality and the quantity of the books I read this month. Now with regard to numbers, it was a great month. I read 10 plays, 2 novels, a handful of short stories and a bunch of poems. So we'll begin with the plays. Now regular viewers of the channel will be aware of the fact that I'm currently reading through all of Shakespeare's 38 or so plays. At the end of January I had read 10 and I read 7 more in February. So we'll begin with those, and we kick off with Romeo and Juliet. Now I'd seen various movie adaptations of this, but this was the first time I'd sat down and read the play, and it was absolutely delightful. It's every person's mission, truly, to find someone who loves them the way Juliet loves Romeo. She really did steal the show. Okay, and then moving on, we had another love story, and this time it's Antony and Cleopatra. I'm not sure people would be so desperate to be loved the way Cleopatra loves. It's a very possessive kind of love, a jealous love. But this was magnificent. I'm a huge fan of Shakespeare's Roman plays, Coriolanus, Julius Caesar, but this for me was possibly the best of them because you have the politics and a wonderful love story. So this one is highly recommended. And then one more play where the title focuses on male and female relationship, and it is Troilus and Cressida, a play that is rarely produced and is frequently criticised by scholars for its overly cynical tone, but that was exactly what I enjoyed about it. It's pretty much a satire on the world of ancient Greece. You see Odysseus, Achilles and Agamemnon as you've never seen them before, because you get a chance to look behind their high-flown rhetoric and see what egomaniacs, what hypocrites they are. There's a magnificent scene where Odysseus is standing outside Achilles' tent and he knows Achilles is listening to every word and he's winding him up by praising Ajax, yes, not Patroclus. And you just know that inside that tent, Achilles is burning with jealousy, with envy. So that was excellent. Cressida is a wonderful leading lady because she sees straight through the men who are trying to woo her. So I enjoyed the way she just knocks them back down to earth. That was very satisfying. So this, I would suggest, is something of an overlooked gem in the Shakespeare canon. And it is, of course, based upon Chaucer's very long narrative poem, Troilus and Cressida. But Shakespeare makes plenty of changes to this and, on the whole, much improves it. He does away with the very long opening sequence of this, which is Pandar trying to get Troilus to tell him who he's in love with. Shakespeare just plunges right into it. Okay, other Shakespeare plays. So this one I've read many times. It's The Tempest. I really don't like this nose on the cover. It kind of also looks like a ship's sails. Maybe that was the cunning visual pun that was the behind this design, but no, I really don't like that. And these eyes are very scary. It looks more like Frankenstein's monster than The Tempest. But this is one of my favorite plays. You can read it in just a few hours, and I've read this one 4 or 5 times, always with the same pleasure. There's also a very good BBC adaptation of this with, I believe, Richard Burton playing Caliban. Yes, I'll put a link to it in the description. Then we have Pericles, one of Shakespeare's lesser known plays, and this is a rollicking adventure, very much in the vein of Sinbad the Sailor. Pericles solves a riddle posed by a king, and this is a condition for winning his daughter's hand in marriage. But on solving this riddle, he realizes the king's awful secret and has to take flight. So that sets up the action. And on each island he visits, he has an adventure. So yes, this was a very enjoyable read, but I wouldn't say it was much of a play. This one was a very good play. It's The Merchant of Venice. I read this in high school and was completely baffled, but returning to it in my 50s, I greatly enjoyed it. Wonderful speeches, and I did at the end feel rather sorry for Shylock, and I felt that the action jumped in a very incongruous way because Shylock is stripped of his wealth and is basically alone in the world, and then it just jumps to the wedding celebration and Shylock's not there, and none of the guests really give a hoot about poor Shylock's fate. So yes, I did feel for him at the end of this play. And finally, one more magnificent play, and that was As You Like It. This was absolutely wonderful. The love affair between Orlando and Rosalind is just beautiful, and the way Rosalind takes on a disguise and then meets Orlando and has him pretend that she is Rosalind so she can find out the contents of his heart is just wonderful. And at the end, she says to him, "How would you feel, Orlando, if I told you I'm a magician and I can make fair Rosalind appear tomorrow and you can marry her?" Wow, just a beautiful climax to this play. Contains the famous speech, "All the world's a stage," etc. This comes highly recommended. Okay, that is all of the Shakespeare. Let's move on to some more Elizabethan drama. And it is Christopher Marlowe with two plays here. Dido, Queen of Carthage, based on the opening books of Virgil's Aeneid, which was excellent. And then Tamburlaine the Great, Part 1, which was also very good. Tamburlaine is such a showman, and he conquers various kingdoms, whether they're kings or sultans or emperors, it doesn't matter. They all think they can take him on, but he's always superior on the battlefield, and his speeches that kind of whip himself up into a frenzy before each conflict are just magnificent. So Christopher Marlowe's blank verse plays, highly recommended. Also, I told you it was a great month. And then a verse drama by Byron, and he just looks fantastic there. He's in his Albanian national costume, and the one I read was Manfred, which is a rather Faust-like affair, and it's about a man who's committed some kind of family sin, presumably incest, although it's never specified, and he's performing black magic and calling up spirits and demons and asking them to basically help him die because he can't deal with his guilty conscience, and the language is just so powerful. And I'm going to read you the part where he's conjured up the spirit of Mont Blanc, no less, and he has all of its awesome power placed at his disposal. Mont Blanc is the monarch of mountains. They crowned him long ago, on a throne of rocks in a robe of clouds, with a diadem of snow. Around his waist are forests braced, the avalanche in his hand. But ere it fall, that thundering ball must pause for my command. The glacier's cold and restless mass moves onward day by day, but I am he who bids it pass, or with its eyes delay. I am the spirit of the place, could make the mountain bow, and quiver to his cavern base, and what with me wouldst thou? I just love the power of Byron's verse. If you've never read any Byron, perhaps you've been put off by the length of his major poems, Don Juan or Childe Harold's Pilgrimage, which go on for hundreds of pages. There are shorter works like Manfred, which are just as good. So Manfred comes highly recommended by the disappointed man. Now, staying with romantic poetry, we have Shelley in this Oxford Classics edition, two long narrative poems, the first of which, in truth, The Witch of Atlas, is not very good. It even begins with a letter from Shelley to his wife, Mary Shelley Wollstonecraft, defending the poem from her criticism. However, after reading it, one has to conclude that on this occasion, Shelley's judgment was not as good as that of his wife. The second poem, Alastor, is a different story. It's an excellent poem that I've read perhaps 5 or 6 times now, always with the same delight. It concerns a lonely poet who goes on a magical journey and then dies. I'm going to read you some lines from the poet's travels through the Orient. His wandering step, obedient to high thoughts, has visited the awful ruins of the days of old, Athens and Tyre and Baalbek, and the waste where stood Jerusalem, the fallen towers of Babylon, the eternal pyramids, Memphis and Thebes, and whatsoever of strange, sculptured on alabaster obelisk, or jasper tomb, or mutilated sphinx, dark Ethiopia in her desert hills conceals. Among the ruined temples there, stupendous columns and wild images of more than man, where marble demons watch the zodiac's brazen mystery, and dead men hang their mute thoughts on the mute walls around. He lingered, poring on memorials of the world's youth, through the long burning day, gazed on those speechless shapes, nor, when the moon filled the mysterious halls with floating shades, suspended he that task, but ever gazed and gazed, till meaning on his vacant mind flashed like strong inspiration, and he saw the thrilling secrets of the birth of time. Absolutely superb. Those words just feed my imagination. It's so complex, but it all hangs together in such superb fashion. In my eyes, Shelley is an incomparably greater poet than Byron. Okay, moving on, we have some French stories I read from my Guide de Maupassant, Con, Cruel and Fantastique, and the two here were The Tomb, which is 5 pages or so, and was really good. At the beginning, a dog is barking at the door of a sexton's house, and he follows it out to the graveyard with a rifle, just in case, and there finds a man digging up the body of a woman. He apprehends him, and then we jump to the trial, and the judge asks the accused, who's a young lawyer, if he has anything to say in his defense, and then he steps forward and gives the backstory. That was excellent. But the other one, A Family, was just terrible, and you saw all of Maupassant's vile misogyny on display, and I don't really know why he wrote it. It was so bitter. All it did was attack women and married life. Okay, so the good and the bad with Maupassant there. Then short stories, and I read some in this book, Marcovaldo by Italo Calvino. Its subtitle is The Seasons in the City, and it's about finding magic in the everyday. And I'll just read you the good stories that I read in here. So one of them I know was called The Wasp Treatment, and that was highly amusing. Oh, Mushrooms in the City. That was excellent. That is similar in some respects to The Wasp Treatment, but the best one was, what's it called? Yes, The City Lost in the Snow. Just superb. These are so inventive, and they're also so humorous. Such a delicate touch. So Italo Calvino is Marcovaldo, highly recommended. Next we have the 2 novels I read this month, which were both by the same author, Knut Hamsun. The Wanderer, 2 for 1 in this package. I've already made a video about this book, so if you follow the link in the description, you can watch that. And then to finish, poetry once again, and it was an Irish poet, W.B.Yeats, for my seminar on Irish literature. So I have this Penguin Classics and this selected poems with 3 plays also. And the instructor asked us to read, so to speak, all the hits. Easter 1916, The Second Coming, When You Are Old, etc. I've read them all before, and they're all great, but the plays were something completely different, and I read just one, very short, 30 pages or so, Cathleen nee Houlihan, and this play combines what are sometimes said to be the only 2 real ideas for a work of fiction, which are someone goes on a journey or a stranger comes to town. I'll say no more. It's a highly effective story with a great climax. So if you've not read any of Yeats's plays, you might wish to check them out. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes my monthly wrap. Apologies for highly recommending so many of these works, but it was an extraordinary month in terms of quality. So there you have it. That was my reading for the month. Any thoughts on those books, or anything you wish to share about your own reading? Did you make any great discoveries in February? Please leave a comment below. But for now, all that remains is for me to nominate my book of the month and then bid you farewell. And regarding the book of the month, I'm going to cheat and nominate 2 this time. And they are 2 plays by Shakespeare. I just can't separate them. Antony and Cleopatra and As You Like It are my books of the month for February 2025. Okay, now, as promised, all I need to do is say farewell. So, until the next time, be safe, be strong, nanu nanu.